Hello and welcome to this Necron painting video. In this video we're going to be taking you through painting some key details of the Zarakura dynasty. Now we're going to be using a Necron warrior as an example, however this colour scheme can easily transfer to any Necron model in your collection. The first thing we need to do is undercoat the model, and as you can see here we've used lead belcher, which is a great starting point for this colour scheme. So the first thing I'm going to do is concentrate on the exoskeleton. I'm going to apply silicone and grey all over that. So I'm going to be using a medium shade brush for this. So what I'm going to do is just load that up, get a couple of dollops onto my brush, and apply that all over the model. Now it's easy at this point to do it all over the model because you can be a bit messy and you don't have to be too neat about where it's going to go. So I always recommend doing it all over because it actually covers a lot of the things like the gun as well. Take your time, and if you do find it pooling in some of those recesses, just use your brush to soak up any excess. There we are, the silicone and grey now dry. What we're going to do now is move on to doing a bit of a highlight. For this we'll be using iron hand steel, and then we're going to dry brush it. Only a soft dry brush just to pick out some of the edges. So what I'm going to do is grab my small dry brush, apply a little bit onto the bristles like so, and all we're aiming to do here is wipe it off. It sounds counterproductive, but that's fine because the idea is you're getting small traces of pigment on those bristles. So just a couple of circular motions, crisscross it like so, and then you're aiming to look for something a little bit like that. So there's not too much on there, and there's nothing. In fact, you can just see there. Sometimes that is one of the pitfalls. If you're not careful, you still get a little bit of paint in the center. So just double check. There we are. I'm happy with that now. So all I'm going to do is then just gently run that across the actual model. So you're aiming to pick out some of the edges of the actual exoskeleton. So you're not aiming to do the whole model and layer it up. You're just trying to pick out the edges of the armor. There we are, that dry brush done. What we're going to do now is move on to the next step, which is add a bit of a tint to that exoskeleton. So we're going to give it a nice turquoisey hue, if you like. So we'll be using a Keeling green for this. I'm going to paint that all over the things we've just done. It would slightly change the highlight and also the tone of that exoskeleton. So what I'm going to do is get my medium shade brush, just apply a little bit to the palette. Again, we don't want to overload the brush here. Make sure we get a good point to it. And then all we need to do is just start painting that quite neatly over those areas. And as you can see, just changing the hue of the actual exoskeleton and the highlight as well. There we are with the Keeling green now dry. What we're going to do now is finish off that exoskeleton with a little highlight of iron and steel here and there, just to pick out things like knuckles, the odd raised detail, and some scratches too. So I'm going to use a small layer brush for this. Just going to apply a little bit to the palette, not too much, a little touch of water. The aim here really is just to be very subtle and to get your brush to a nice point. So as you can see, I'm spinning it a few times just to help get it to a point. So if we start tracing on the model, look where we're going to do it. So you've got some knuckles here. So what I'm going to do is just pick those out with a little dot here and there. Now, when you did the dry brush, that was a nice subtle kind of thing. And obviously that's been now tainted or tinted, if you like, with the Keeling green. So what you're doing is almost like fresher scratches, just like the odd one here and there. So don't go mad. There we are with that highlight done. Our exoskeleton is finished. So what we're going to do now is move on to picking out the armor panels, which we're going to do in a nice jade color. We're going to start off by doing a layer of cabalite green. After that, we're going to apply silicone and grey over, then tidy back up on some of those raised details with cabalite green again, and finish off with a nice highlight around the edges of sabrite green. But first of all, let's start with that base coat / layer. So I'm just going to apply a little bit to the palette, a little bit of water, not too much. Make sure we get a nice point to the brush. And then we're going to start picking those armor panels out. This will vary from obviously model to model within the range, but for the actual Necron warriors, it's just these armor panels. There we are with the cabalite green now dry. I did add a second coat just to be on the safe side, just to remove any of those like blemishes that you'd get from some of the darker tones underneath. So what I'm going to do now is use silicone and grey. I'm going to start coating that over the armor. Now don't worry here, because in some of the raised details we'll tidy back up with cabalite green in a minute or two. This just add a little bit of depth to some of those deeper areas. There we are with silicone and grey now dry. We're going to get cabalite green again. We're just going to tidy up some of those raised areas, almost like a broader highlight, if you like. Just work your way around, just add a bit more definition. The great thing here is obviously using the same colour and having a tone on it gives you a second highlight as well. There we are with that tidy up stage now done with the cabalite green. We're just going to finish off the jade armour using sabrite green as a highlight. So what I'm going to do here, start on the edge first. Just using the edge of my brush like so, just doing a nice little fine highlight. Just take your time, work your way around. There we are with the jade armour now done. We're going to move on to the next detail, which is his skull face. Now for this, we're going to start with a base coat of grey cere. We're then going to apply a shade of Coelia green shade all over, tidy back up with grey cere, and then finish off with a highlight of pallid witch flesh. But first of all, let's start with that base coat. So I'm just going to apply a little bit to the palette, as we always do. A little bit of water, don't want it too thick and goopy. And then, as I always say, get your brush to a nice point as well. So once we've done that, we're ready to start base coating that skull face. So just take your time. You might need to do a second coat if needed. There we are, with the face now base coated with grey cere. We're going to apply Coelia green shade all over. Try and concentrate some of the deeper recesses, like around the edges of his cranium and his mouth. Just move it around like so. There we are, with that shade now dry. What we're going to do now is just tidy back up some of those raised areas with grey cere. So what I'm aiming to do here is just like some of the things like around his cranium, eye sockets. You're almost doing your first highlight if you like. Any like dents, just work your way around that as well. There we are, with the tidy up stage now done. We're just going to finish off with a little bit of pallid witch as a final highlight. So all we're going to do is just, again, around those things like the eye sockets, the nose, the teeth. And there we are, with the exoskeleton, armour and skull face. Our Necron of the Zarakura dynasty is now completed. Now remember, you can easily transfer this colour scheme to any other Necron in your collection as well. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed painting your own Necrons in this colour scheme. And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.